So it's been quite a long time since I made a video about Skyro, but I guess let's just get straight into this one. So what does a rocket need to lift off? Well, firstly, it needs propellant, because how are you going to lift off something when it doesn't have anything to make it lift off in the first place? So yeah, so we need some propellant. That can be some kind of thing like a fuel and oxidizer or compressed gas, anything like that. We also need some way to recover the rocket, so that can be something like parachutes or propulsive landing, which is extremely difficult, and I'm not going to do that because this is a high power rocket. So doing a propulsive landing like SpaceX or Joe Barnard and stuff like that, that is very difficult, and you know, that's currently not what I want to do because it's basically my first ever rocket launch. So yeah, we need recovery, so that's going to be done with a parachute. And then after that, we have communication. So this can be done with antennas, and this will bring telemetry and, well, where the rocket is at the moment of time as well. That can be done using, what I'm going to use is the NRF24LO1 transceiver, which is 2.4 gigahertz, and it should be able to transmit enough data across. And the final thing is the body of the rocket, so like the fuselage, the fins, the nose cone, and everything that is going to hold it together, like the motor mount as well, that holds the motor, the rocket motor, which has the propellant inside of it. You kind of need that if you want to build a rocket. But today we're going to be talking about the propellant, so what fuel and oxidizer we're going to use, and well, let's just start from the basics. So a motor. So in the rocket motor we're going to have two propellants, so we're going to have a fuel and we're also going to have an oxidizer to provide oxygen to the flames or the fuel. So the fuel that I'm going to be using is just simple plain sugar, also known as sucrose. And the oxidizer that we're going to use is potassium nitrate, because when it decomposes, it lets off nice oxygen gas to feed the fuel. So the formula for sucrose is C12H22O12. I accidentally wrote O6, but let's not talk about that. And the formula for potassium nitrate is KNO3, which is a lot more simpler. And that extra O3 is where we get the oxygen from to feed the fuel. And then moving on to sucrose, all of that H22, the hydrogen, and C12, that is a lot of energy, and that's why when you eat sugar you go hyper, because there's a lot of energy in sugar. So that's going to combust and go crazy when it's actually inside of the motor. Other than this, there's also a casing, a liner, and some grain tubes to go inside of the motor. Well, the casing goes outside the motor, but the liner and grain tubes go inside the motor. But I've covered this in episode, I don't know what episode it is, but I'll link it. I'll give that little eye thing in the top corner. Yeah, I made a video on that already, so go and watch that if you haven't already. We'll be mixing potassium nitrate to sucrose in a 65-35 ratio. This should be like the other way around. So like potassium nitrate should be on the other side. But it doesn't matter, we're going to burn 65-35 ratio of potassium nitrate to sugar, and that turns out to be 13 grams of potassium nitrate and 7 grams of sugar, which all together add up to 20 grams in total. And this is just to check if the propellant is even working in the first place, because it might not be pure enough. Anyways, without further ado, let's actually get into the actual video of testing out the propellant. Okay, so today, in this video, I'm going to be making I'm going to be testing out the propellant for the Skyro rocket, and hopefully it will work, because this potassium nitrate here I'm in the UK, so potassium nitrate is very hard to find, so hopefully this is pure enough to burn, and yeah, I'm going to make it like right now, I guess. So what I'm using is potassium nitrate and sugar or sucrose. Powdered sugar is always best because it's has a lot more surface area. This is granulated potassium nitrate, so what I will need to do is put it into this mortar and pestle, so then I can crush it up into a finer powder, so it has a higher surface area. I will need to measure out a 65-35 ratio of potassium nitrate to sugar for the highest specific impulse. If you don't know what that is basically the highest amount of energy you can get from this combination of fuel. But without further ado, I guess we should get started by dumping some potassium nitrate into this mortar and pestle. Okay, you can see I have just put in some of the potassium nitrate into this mortar and pestle, and now I'm going to grind it into a fine powder. So here we go. Okay, so I just grinded it into a smaller powder. We have to measure out 65, no, not 65 grams. We have to measure out 13 grams of potassium nitrate, and then we have to measure out 7 grams of sugar. And then after that, we'll just mix it and then light it outside. I've got the scale here, measures in grams, ounces, and other things. So as you can see, we have 0 grams at the moment. We're going to have to put this on. This is going to be a little thing to measure it on. I'm just going to do this. So we'll go to 0. And then we have to measure out 13 grams of potassium nitrate. So I'm going to use a plastic spoon so we don't get any sparks or anything, because we're mixing up propellant, which is extremely flammable if you didn't know. So what we're going to do is just take this and then we're going to pour it into here until we get enough grams. So that was 1 gram. And I'm going to keep on doing it until we finally get enough. So there we go. I just measured up 13 grams of potassium nitrate. Now we have to add 7 grams of sugar, so that should all add, oh, I just changed. Okay, that's not meant to do that. But this should all add up to 20 grams. And now there we have our batch of 20 grams of KNSU fuel, so that means potassium nitrate, KNO3, and sugar, which is sucrose, so KNSU, all together, and this is our fuel. You would usually melt it, so it becomes a nice paste, so you can turn it into a motor, but for now we're just going to test the propellant and hopefully it works. What I'm going to do now is put this on top of this and then shake it so it gets it nice and thoroughly mixed. Okay, so now it's a bit dark, but I've bought the mixture outside. I'm going to dump some here and then I'm going to light it. As you can see, it is nice and dark, so we should be able to see a nice purple flame because this is potassium, and potassium gives off a purple flame, so that should work. Don't want to get on my fingers, so I'm going to place a bit of it on here like this. There we go. Okay, that's a pretty good amount. Now I'm going to close this and then I'm going to turn off the lights. Well, the lights are already off. Okay, now I'm going to light it and hopefully it should work. Okay, so I have the potassium nitrate right there and I got a candle here, so I can light this here and then hopefully it should burn. Okay, here we go. Oh! God, that worked so well. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. Wow, might as well just put all of it. Okay, here we go. Potassium nitrate once more.